good afternoon, everyone. I hope you guys are safe and sound in your own homes or wherever you're listening. We will talk about what happened in the stock market, in the Philippine stock market in the month of July. Okay, so basically, we all know the market significantly went down, right? But let's dissect it a bit. Let's find the reason why, and let's know what we should anticipate moving forward. So okay, first we'll summarize what happened in July and then what to watch out for in August. And have a special segment for you guys, for those who are listening here or through our podcast. So, who is expected to be added and removed in the next PSI rebalancing? So, actually, the PSI rebalancing, it's usually disclosed every Friday, and it's usually occurs every first week of August. So, if that trend continues, the announcement could be by the end of next week, 1 week from now, and then we'll reiterate or we'll explain again what are our long-term picks, and then we have two playbook picks for you guys. Okay. So to summarize what happened in the month of July, so how bad was it? Well, the PSI went down by 9.2%. So we closed at 6,270.23. And just to refresh or just to mention some fact here, this is the biggest monthly drop since March of 2020. So this is the biggest monthly drop year to date, and this is the biggest monthly drop since the COVID-19 breakdown, which was last March. So year to date, the PSI is down by 12.2%. Keep in mind we were just down by nearly 3% last month. So this was a big drop that really occurred in the month of July. So what supported the market, at least at the start of July, keep in mind that in the first week of July, we were actually up. And it was initially because of improving macro data. We were there. We were already there. Um, Philippine manufacturing PMIs picked up. We were actually in the expansionary uh, mode already, right? Even the employment rate improved, right? But what dragged the market ever since the start of the second week of July was the first thing that occurred was the downgrading, right? The Fitch ratings downgrading Philippine outlook to negative. Um, Nonetheless, the international credit watch affirmed the country's rating given the robust external buffer in that level. So, just to explain a bit, so Fitch ratings downgraded Philippine outlook to negative. But what's more important is the credit rating. The credit rating of the country is still the same. Even same with the compared to pre-pandemic, still it's the same credit rating now, right? The Philippines outlook is more on the growth prospects, at least in the short term. And um, what Fitch said is they really downgraded a lot of countries. So nevertheless, it's something that is significant to foreign investors. But what's more important is the credit rating, and the credit rating is the same. So the Philippines can still borrow at lower rates. Okay, and then from there, the Delta variant really clouded the sentiment, not only in the Philippines but globally, right? And just earlier, there was an announcement earlier, like today's July 30. So uh, the government announced that from August 6 to 20, NCR Plus will be under ECQ. Okay, actually starting tomorrow, there's dine in, al fresco not allowed already, right? Only takeouts and deliveries are allowed in food establishments to really curb the Delta variant. And now looking at the price action, um, we've actually mentioned that once the market, you know, breaks below, I think that 6 level, we're already signaling some sounding alarms, right? And then what occurred now is for the fourth straight week, the PSI fell, broke another support level of 6.4. Initially, 6.750, 6.6. That was again 6.4. So there was an oversold bounce in the middle of the week, but the market was not able to sustain that. Uh, the MACD, if you take a look at it, confirms the bearish momentum. And if you take a look at the RSI right now, for those who are technical analysis savvy, the PSI is due for a bounce. Nevertheless, we should remain cautious because the expected rebound could be a dead cat bounce, as seen the last time it hit near oversold levels, which was early last week. So if you're quite specific with your buying the index, if you're price specific, you could follow this recommendation. But for example, if you're not yet in the market, I'm not. It's always good to be invested, right? It's a matter of exposure. That's the thing. But having zero exposure, especially if you're a long-term investor, you should there should be exposure, right? Time in the market is better than timing the market, especially if you're not 100% dedicated to looking at the market, right? That's why it's very important. Because if you take a look at the drop last March, I think you can still see it here. No, no, you can't see it here anymore. But the biggest drop last March, right? When the market hit 4,000, it hit 4,000 intraday. It ended at 4,600, and then the next day is 5,000 agad. But that's how fast the market drops, and that's how fast the market can go up. So it's just a matter of exposure, right? But having zero exposure, well, that's not recommended for a long-term investor, right? If you take a look at the monthly chart of the PSCI, they're really finding resistance, right? It's so, like we've said in the several monthly wrap-ups, we're not out of the woods yet looking at price action. So we're seeing it right now. Actually, going back to the daily chart, if you take a look, diba 7.4 yung previous high. 7.4 yung high in 2021. And right now, the market attempted to, retest that high. So nag-hit lang yata ng above 7,000. So that's a lower high. So if you take a look at the basic concepts of technical analysis, there's a high probability we could create a lower low, which means there's a probability that the market could go below 6.1, which was the previous low last May. Diba? Yun yung post-MSCR rebalancing. We should prepare for that, right? We're positive on the fundamental side, but that's the beauty of, having these several events, having several reports show to you what we're seeing in fundamental, what we're seeing in the price action, and you can, put it together. So what do you watch out for in August? There are a lot of things to watch out for in August. Again, number one, Delta variant and its implication to the lockdown measures in PH. We know that in NCR, in other, there, I think in Iloilo, etc., ECQ, right? And for NCR, it was specified already na ECQ from August 6 to August 20. Um, so now, moving past August 2020, what will be the lockdown measures, right? I think the government is pretty um, careful in implementing ECQ, especially diba, usually daw if ECQ according to the mayors kailangan may ayuda. It's something to put on our watch list on whether they will continue implementing ECQ after August 20, especially for NCR where most economic activities happen. Hence, the market quickly reacted to that news earlier. And the Delta variant, keep in mind, that's why the government is really acting on the Delta variant. Kasi if you take a look at NCR cases, sabi nila 1,200 lang, but mag-ECQ agad? Because you should know what happened to the other countries. Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, tapos sa Japan, highest cases. Sa Vietnam, first time nila mag-lockdown. Hindi sila masyado nag-lockdown last time. So right now, they're seeing the cases and the Delta variant is the main culprit. Because the Delta variant really, is really serious, right? It will really hit especially the unvaccinated ones, diba? So we should know that it's really serious and it could have several implications also in the economic side, hence also the market. If you take a look at the economic data that we should watch out for, so we have manufacturing data next Monday, we have inflation data on August 5th, the second quarter GDP on August 10, right? We expect a huge rebound for that one, but how big of a rebound? That's the time we look at consensus expectation, and that's the beauty of looking at our reports to know what is the consensus expectation. And then there's BSP interest rate decision on August 12, and then oil remittances on August 16. For US, there's jobs reports for August 6. It's a must-watch data for them. Usually kasi pag the central bank of US is watching jobs report, because once they see a huge improvement for that one, they will take that into account into their interest rate decision moving forward. Same with inflation. For inflation US, it's still a must-watch for them, right? And then GDP. For global, there's manufacturing data and GDP of EU and Japan on the same week of August. August 17 and August 16 respectively, si EU and Japan GDP. And then the more important ones is the corporate earnings of Philippines and US. We're quite in a better situation right now compared to last 2020 in terms of lockdown measures. So expect earnings to improve. Companies have already adjusted to the situation. They know how to earn given this environment. But I guess what I've been saying every time we mention earnings series, what's more important is what's their forward guidance. That's the thing that's investors will take into account. Earnings season has started. Bulk of the earnings usually come in August for the first half. So you take a look at our reports for your, you know, companies that are under your watch list. Again, COVID-19 vaccine related news, right? COVID-19 vaccine is the solution for this, for the spread. Of course, even yung mga vaccinated nagkaka-COVID, there's still a risk, but they're likely more to live, right, than the unvaccinated ones that may COVID. That's why it's very important to watch the vaccine related progress. We are yet to receive a lot of vaccines, right? So something to be excited about. And then global inflation. Like global inflation is still an economic data to watch out for. That's why it's still being taken into account. If you remove COVID, there's still overhang in the market, and that's global inflation. So it's still something to watch out for. This month's wrap up is risk expected to be added in removing the PSEI. So fortunately for clients, we published this 1 week ago, right? They've probably be positioned already. For those who are, not our clients and listening here, you're more fortunate to know what's our recommendation, right? But if you want more details, again, you could take a look at our platform or website. So now for us, based on research, actually, if you take a look at here, I'm the author of this report. Nevertheless, it's collaborative effort in terms of data gathering, right? And based on what we've gathered and based on our estimates, AC Energy will be included in the PSEI. So why? Because I think it's pretty much, it's probably an open secret that AC Energy will likely be included in the PSEI in August 2021. But I would like to share to you why, for you to have a gauge moving forward on who can be added, right? Probably you're estimating Monday Energy could be added in the PSA soon. But the main question is, for example, si Converge, ba't di siya masasama right now? If you take a look at the criteria, number one, to be included in the PSEI, you have to be listed in the PSE for at least 12 months. Converge listed October, so it's not yet 12 months. And then the free float shares has to be at least 15% of outstanding shares. If you take a look, FB, if I'm not mistaken, 400 billion market cap, but di siya kasama sa PSEI because its free float is not 15%. Another is it should be heavily traded. Diba? For example, si Golden Haven, why is it not of the part of the PSEI? Because it's not heavily traded, right? So there are specific criteria for being included in the PSEI, and based on our thorough analysis, AC Energy will likely be included. So who will be removed? I think that's the more interesting part or the harder part to estimate. But for us, it will either be DMC or Bloomberry. So if you were to choose one, DMC has a higher probability of being removed. So if you want to take a look at our more of our analysis, just read our report in our platform. Okay. So I hope this gives you guidance because there are a lot of yung mga nag-estimate diyan eh. Like baka si Converge masama, but it's pretty clear what PSC's rules are. And this is actually a public document, the PSC index policy, the PSE policy on index management. That for a company to be part of the PSEI, kailangan 12 months ka listed, right? So AC Energy ticks all the boxes. So Converge probably next year. Si Monday, like when she listed June 1, right? So maybe, let's see. So here's our specific recommendations for each stock. So at the end of the day, DMC Bloom are reopening plays, right? So it's just a matter of waiting for them to normalize whichever gets removed. And then you could actually take advantage of the drop of whoever gets removed, right? So for example, si SEC nung natanggal, binentahan siya, right? But there's actually opportunity on the drops. But for now, of course, given the Delta variant scare, it's not yet recommended to pick up DMC Bloom anyways. So just wait for the drop once one of them gets for example, if ever it occurs that one of them gets booted out in the PSCI, because fund managers have to sell the stock because they have tracking, they have index, diba? So they have to track the index, so they have to make room for AC Energy. So they have to sell some of those na hindi na part ng PSCI, so selling is expected, right? So You have to take note of that. So now, since that's clear, that's our special report again, published last July 23. Um, it's something you should know about kung sino ba, paano ba makakapasok yung isang stock sa PSCI, right? It's a knowledge not that shared, right? That's why it's very important that you read, because for you to share to your friends or probable investors moving forward. So our stock picks again, reopening place pa rin, guys. Reopening place pa rin. Because if you take a look, again, these are for long term, right? If you we have been mentioning the opening since the start of the year, probably being impatient already, right? But you saw how fast the reopening winners rallied prior to the Delta variant, right? Once we figure out how to subside or minimize the Delta variant cases, the reopening winners can reemerge as market leaders, right? So again, if you're long term, it's because if short term trader ka, it's a different strategy. It's a different strategy, right? You have to follow your support resistance levels. But if you're long term, you should really be patient. And I would just like to highlight how fast the reopening winners rallied, right? From 6-1, 7-1 yung market, di ba? Ang dami, 20-30% rally from our index names. It could happen again. The question is when, right? Again, that's a health related situation, but we should be positioned for it. I'm not saying we should be 100% positioned, but nevertheless we should be positioned on these reopening winners, right? And then have cash enough left to buy once they pull back further. Okay, that's basically the main strategy, and I'm following that. So why are we picking Ayala Land? It's a reopening winner. So for those who are listening for the first time, of course, besides the obvious na yung malls, they will benefit. Another is Ayala Land's exposure to the residential segment. More than 60% of their operating income accounts for the residential segment, and that's a reopening segment, right? So that bodes well for them. So current target price namin pa rin is 51, right? Especially once operations normalize, we expect Ayala Land to move closer to that target price. Same with SM Prime. SM Prime right now is what? Oversold levels na, 31 pesos na lang, right? So that probably give you an opportunity to, buy a bit, then buy once it further dips, if it ever dips further, right? But why should you buy SM Prime Holdings? Again, reservation sales last 2020 is higher than 2019. That's a fun fact. So especially right now that the economy is attempting to reopen, normalize, especially once we're out of the woods, SM Prime Holdings is set to benefit from that one. Keep in mind, interest rates are still low, remittances remain resilient, right? And it bodes well for reservation sales for property. So again, yung malls pa rin yung another catalyst for SM Prime Holdings, but we should wait for the variance to, you know, to lessen for us to reopen. For Robinsons Land, another laggard. Um, but the fun fact here is it has projects in China. It has a project in China that is already contributing, so it's a growth prospect for Robinsons Land. While the domestic business is not yet significantly picking up given the several lockdowns. Yung project niya sa China is already contributing as we speak. So it's something that investors are overlooked. So it's for you guys to take advantage. So our target price is 26 pesos. We're also positive on consumers discretionary. Consumers discretionary like FB. If you take a look at FB, if you've been holding FB, if you've been following these kinds of webinars that we have, if you've been following our company reports or traders playbook reports, we've been recommending FB. And FB has been one of our outperformers. Si FB current target price namin is 93 and trading at 83 pa rin siya ngayon. Has not pulled back that much. It's actually the opening play because of its beer, alcoholic beverage business, right? Prior to the Delta variant, actually even, right now, if you take a look at your Instagram, Facebook, ang dami nagbabarakay. 'Di ba? Sa Hinan, kasi puro sale. Hinan, Boracay. 'Di ba? Ang dami. And that bodes well. That bodes well for the brewery business. More social gatherings, more nightlife activities benefit FB. But of course, the Delta variant will will likely, limit the gains of FB. Nevertheless, FB is a reopening winner. If you take a look at price action, it's an outperformer. It's a market leader, right? So something to put on your watch list and even try to accumulate right now if you wish. For RHI, keep in mind, si RHI is not doing anything that much share price wise because most of its operations, or at least yung pinagkakita niya sa malls. And the malls have not yet reopened fully. Diba? There was a short period of time this month na inallowing children. But biglang, 'di ba, given the Delta variant, di na sila ulit pwede lumabas. Tapos right now may ECQ pa. So that would, keep RHI at the 50 peso levels. But again, if you're long term, if you want to take a look what will happen in the next 1, 2, 3 years once marami ng vaccinated, wala na masyadong variants, we know how to live um, given the current situation, we know RHI will outperform. It's just a matter of time, right? If you're pretty impatient with this one, you could shift to other names, but please continue to put this on your watch list. Okay. And then this is a buy pick of ours. If you haven't seen our Traders Playbook report on Monday, company report, Traders Playbook report on Monday, please take a look. But this is a buy pick of ours. It's not one of our top picks because Monday Nissan is technically, a stable earner, not necessarily the opening play, but it's a new buy pick of ours. Monday Nissan, our target price is 21. Um, it's one of the outperformers, technically just listed on June, but it's one of the outperformers, still up by more than 9% year to date. But why do we like Monday Nissan, right? We know yung alam natin kay Monday is the branded food and beverage business, right? The Nissan, and its other products, MI San Grahams, Mamacita, 'di ba? Yun yung branded food and beverage segment. And we expect that to grow at a stable um pace given that almost all of its products, even yung yogurt, remains to be the market leader. But now the question is, okay, Monday's big. How will it grow? It will grow through its meat alternative segment, right? It means its meat alternative segment, aka corn foods, is focused on regaining market share in the UK, right? US UK nag-reopen na sila. Marami nang vaccinated dun eh. And we are not yet seeing that corn foods product that much here because again, it's exposed to US UK. And it's taking advantage of the healthy eating trend, right? Yung mga plant-based food. So that's the growth strategy. Especially right now, the corn food is mostly exposed pa lang sa developed markets. What if pa kaya mag-expand siya? And the money, yung proceeds ng IPO will actually be used to expand corn foods. So that's the growth prospect of Monday, the meat alternative segment. How will it grow? It's already big. Take a look at the meat alternative segment. Okay. Another thing is there's a high probability that stock will be included in major market indices, MSCI, FTSE, PSCI. For PSA, probably next year. But for MSCI, FTSE, it could be included in the latter part of the year because again, it has a large market cap, but it's a pretty liquid name, no foreign ownership limits. It's a high probability inclusion in MSCI FTSE. So it's something to hedge. For example, 'di ba, we've been recommending the opening winners. 'Di ba? How would you hedge yourself? Get some stable earning company, no matter the economic cycle. That's Monday. So that could be added to your portfolio. So buy on any pullbacks. Again, it's back to 14 pesos siya. Oh. Dati 17 na siya. So you know how strong the stock is, especially if in a good market environment. So something to ponder upon. We're also positive on the banks, right? Again, you can't fully reopen if wala masyadong businesses na nagbaborrow. And in terms of trend, we've been seeing it already, right? Prior to the Delta variant, the banks have already seen improvements in their lending activities. So it's just a matter of time lang talaga. Sentiment is really down right now. But again, as mentioned, we've been showing you companies that are relatively strong in terms of operations, have been operating for quite some time, right? That's those are the stocks that we are recommending to you for the long term, right? At the end of the day, these companies have faced several economic crises, and yet they have remained market leader. Share price have historically been on an uptrend, 'di ba? Right now lang talaga medyo matagal yung consolidation natin, downtrend, right? But at the end of the day, these are market leaders. Market, I mean, on the operation side, right? So BDO is one. And again, for BDO, it's significantly cheap. If you take a look at credit quality concerns are easing as prospects for faster return on equity recovery, right? So that's for BDO. For BPI, it's the same. Ito yung company na nag-disclose na ng earnings and it's quite strong. So our current target price is 105 pesos. Same thesis with BDO, right? For Metrobank, again, we cannot recommend Metrobank because it's part of the group. We're part of the group. But we have a research partner, DBS, that does the research for Metrobank, and their target price 67, almost the same thesis. You could take those into consideration. For SM, actually, our target price for SM is now 1,254. We took into account, the first quarter lockdown, and the create bill, 'di ba? Meron pa rin create bill that boosts the earnings of companies. So SM kasi yan yung pinaka reopening winner, right? If you take a look at SM, relatively stable compared to other index names. So it's one of your pick talaga if you want exposure on the leaders, especially on strong economy. SM is your bet. Just a matter of time, guys. Just a matter of time. We know SM Investments has been here in the long time. Market leader pa rin siya. So it's just a matter of time before we feel the strength of these market leaders. Okay? So if you take a look at our topics, so for those listening to our podcast, I'm going to mention to you. So what you're seeing in this slide is the share price as of July 30, the target price and upside. I will mention each. For SM, so share price as of July 30 is 910, target price is 1,254. Our upside, its upside is 37.8%. For Ayala Land, upside is 56%. SM Prime upside to our target price is 33%. RLC upside to our target price is 61%. FB just 11%. For RHI, upside is still 50%. For BDO, upside is 58%. And BPI, 30.4%. So those are the upside from the share price as of July 30 compared to our target price. Okay. And then on this next slide, you will take a look at how our picks have been outperforming compared to market, right? So for those listening to our podcast, what I'm showing here is year to date, diba? Year to date, si PSEI down by 12%. If, for example, you bought our stock picks based on their market weight, for example, SM, siya yung pinamataas yung market weight, siya yung mas mataas mong bibilin, siya yung mas marami mong shares na bibilin. If you did a market cap strategy, your returns would have been just down by 8.9%. But for example, you want it easier. You bought our picks equally. You bought our eight top picks equally. So you would have just been down by 9%, still outperforming the PSEI by 3.2%. Right? Again, market leaders, guys, market leaders, operations, and historically share price leaders. So just to mention our traders playbook picks, we have a couple of. So I would just like to show to you that we have a sector report, Philippine consumers, highlighting which companies are we positive on, right? So you will take a look at which of our topics are we positive on. We have been mentioning that drivers of consumption are still constructive. So take a look at that at our platform. But basically, you will see there for those that are looking at the presentation right now, for those listening to our podcast, basically what this slide is showing is a sector report that we have that can be seen in our website. And our top picks for consumers, SM, RHI, FB, Monday, and URC. Okay. If you want an in-depth look at our sector report, kindly visit our platform. Another playbook pick of ours is Manila Electric Company or Meralco. For us, the recent correction is unwarranted. If you take a look at the first half earnings of Meralco, it's strong, right? Keep in mind that diba, Meralco has been known as a power distribution company, but right now it's also earning as a power generation company. Meaning may mga sarili na siyang power plant, right? So something to consider. And right now, it's trading near support of 265. I believe it closed at 265 today, July 30. So something for bargain hunters, investors to take advantage of, since the pullback gives us an opportunity to buy the stock at lower prices. And Meralco, again, Meralco is somewhat of a safe haven. Kasi, kunyari, if ano tayo, stay at home, tataas yung residential niya. If you go to work, tataas yung industrial segment electricity bill, right? So Meralco earns both ways. And in our Traders Playbook report, we mentioned the management guidance. So if you want to take a look at that, please um, visit our platform. So here's our Traders Playbook performance. Yeah, so we published earlier this month of July that our Traders Playbook was at around 71% hit ratio. But we got hit. Given the market drop, imagine naman, down tayo 9% in a month, right? So the Traders Playbook hit ratio right now is at 64%. Still, still good if you ask me. And I think the better metric there is if you take a look at the lower right, average year to date. If you average those, including the losses, including those stocks that hit our cut loss levels, 5% pa rin year to date ka up, positive, compared to PSCI being down by 12.2%. So that's a 17% outperformance from our Traders Playbook. But we don't only publish buy picks, we also publish sell calls. So see, if you notice Premier Horizon, we published sell call on that one last July 22, and kita mo, bilis, 25% down siya agad in just 8 days. So we publish both buy and sell calls. So for those listening to our podcast, we're showing which reports hit our profit level or end cut loss level. And if you take that all into account, we still have a 64% hit ratio year to date, despite the market being down by 12%. So now this is the time we open the floor to your questions. So first one, what is the suggested strategy given the current condition of PSEI, value investing or growth? Is it a buy now strategy, or should we wait for further tips? Okay. Actually, the strategy right now is like what I've said earlier, just to remain invested, but don't be too aggressive in buying the dips. Right? We know that the lockdown has just started, especially if you take a look at price action. If you want to combine price action and fundamentals, I would wait for the market to bounce from the 6-1 level, and then should it bounce above, you can slowly accumulate. But right now, if you have no exposure in the market and you're waiting for the market to go lower, that's not fully recommended. Right now, the market is 6.2. Buy a bit. Okay, for example, if you have 1 million pesos, you can use 200,000, 300,000 to slowly buy into the market and have enough cash just in case the market goes lower. Okay, that's basically the main strategy here. But the question is, kung alam natin bababa yung market, ba't pinapabili mo kami ngayon? Because the thing here is the market could quickly rebound here, right? And that's what we saw nung nag 6-1 yung market, biglang umakyat to 7-1. That's the thing. We should have exposure in the market. It's just a matter of how big of an exposure. And our main recommendation there right now is to not have too much exposure, but please have exposure, right? Again, as mentioned, time in the market is better than timing the market, especially for long-term investors, okay? And there are a lot of value stocks out there. We've mentioned yung mga banks, yeah, some property, really trading is historically cheap. Okay, so the thing here is reopening winners kasi sila. That's why market sentiment is negative, especially for them. But the underlying fundamentals are healthy. They're just waiting for a better business environment. Investors are waiting for better business environment, right? But for us, we know how historically they outperform earnings wise and share price. So we should take advantage of that. We're hoping 2 to 3 years from now we will be thankful that we bought into these market leaders at very low prices. Okay. What do we think about what will happen in the second quarter? GDP will outperform, underperform? Right now, we'll mention the forecast for GDP probably next week, or next week, right? It's really hard to notice now because we're still taking a look at the data that's coming in. Minsan kasi may mga late data, so we have to consider that. But definitely you will probably see double-digit GDP growth. And that's because the GDP last year was so low. So technically parang low base effect, right? Sobrang baba last year, kaya mataas this year. Since situation or at least the lockdown measures are really strict last year, given that we don't have vaccine yet, and then we don't know how to beat COVID. So what I can tell you right now is GDP will likely be double digit, but will it outperform or underperform? Probably just take a look at our reports in the next weeks. Okay, another good question is, what's wrong with LTG? Bakit grabe yung bagsak ng stock price niya? Yeah, so that's actually what we're still trying to figure out. But definitely we've been seeing heavy net foreign selling for LTG, the heaviest in what we've seen in years. But we just published an LTG report, right? So mga bargain hunters yan probably can benefit you. For LTG, one of the cheapest in the market right now. Tapos, and yet yung estimated net profit margin for the company is the highest in the index, highest within the holding sector. So you can take advantage of that, but if you're a trader, set your strict cut loss to its recent low, 9.5, 9.3, right? But to answer your question, what's wrong with LTG? What I can see now is heavy net foreign selling. In terms of the underlying fundamentals, there's not yet disclosed. So there. Another question is, may possible ba na madagdag na stock ang index sa current na bilang nito na 30 stocks? Well, keep in mind that there can only be 30 stocks, right, in the PSEI. If there's a company forecasted to go into the PSEI, there has to be someone removed in the PSEI. And our forecast is AC Energy will be added in the PSEI, and either DMC or Bloom will get removed. A good question. With stock prices down and the ECQ coming, do you have dividend stocks to recommend instead? Well, in our stock screen, which we publish every Wednesday morning in our platform, there's a screen there called Yield Seeker, right? And we disclose there basically what are the top biggest companies that provide high dividend yield. So it's most of the time PLDT, Globe, Meralco, SCC, DMC, Manila Water, etc. GMA is one. Although you won't see it sa stock screen because we have a filter kasi sa stock screen that kailangan heavy volume yung stock. So GMA is not yet there. Nevertheless, I can mention naman GMA gives a good amount of dividend. Those are the stocks that you could take a look at. Oh, not si Manila Water, hindi siya nagbigay ng dividend yield last year, but historically it gives. GMA 7, yun yung mga high dividend yields. For MPI is significantly cheap, right? MPI is significantly cheap. It's been underappreciated in the market for so long. For us, definitely it should be part of our portfolio. But if you're impatient, you could only allocate a small part of your portfolio to MPI. But be patient with it. It's a good company exposed to several sectors in the economy. Underappreciated lang siya given the regulatory before, but regulatory overhang is subsiding for MPI. So post-pandemic, we expect them to outperform. Okay, next is for Semerara. The thing with Semerara is coal prices have been rallying, several factors globally, but that both the high coal prices have bodes well for Semerara. That's why it's been rebounding. And if you take a look at the pullbacks recently, it's been pretty healthy, ilang percent lang. So if you take a look at our traders playbook report, we mentioned which levels to buy, and they actually benefit from higher electricity spot prices because they supply energy. Besides the mining business, Semerara supplies energy, and higher resin prices since sila nagsusupply ng mataas na prices, so they benefit from that. So it's definitely a opening winner and a beneficiary of high coal prices. For specific levels, you take a look at our playbook reports. How about the power grid when it will happen? So not yet. Are you asking about the city core but no timelines yet? For nickel, yeah, we actually published a report on Nickel Asia as early as April on what we think about nickel. But nickel kasi it's a long-term play yan talaga. For nickel companies, nickel F&I, definitely they're prepped for the long term given the demand for electric vehicles, right? Nickel kasi ginagamit yan sa mga lithium battery na ginagamit in electric vehicles. So they're definitely beneficial for the long term. Nickel commodity prices are rallying. That's why you're seeing nickel outperforming the market as well. Just follow your levels. It's near resistance. So if it creates a new high, you can buy. But if it fails to create a new high, it hits resistance, you can buy at lower prices. But long term, definitely something to put on your watch list and even buy. The question is, would you recommend buying AP, P Gold, and AV given the price levels now and their favorable fundamentals? Yeah, those are actually companies that are good. For Pure Gold, we just published another Players Playbook report on that one earlier. For Pure Gold, relatively strong yung price niya. Kasi ano siya, di ba, parang, especially pag mag-ECQ, the buying of necessity, staying at home, right? For APAV, definitely they're cheap. Especially Aboitiz Power AP. It's significantly cheap. It's a reopening winner. Huge upside for Aboitiz Power. It's the same with MPI. It's just a matter of time before before it rallies further. Deserves a part of our portfolio, but if you're impatient given its lackluster price action, have small exposure. That's good. It's okay. So about this power, we've published several playbooks on that one, so you can take a look at that. For avoid this power, same with Semirara. It's a beneficiary of higher spot market prices since avoid this power is a power generation company. So high spot market prices benefits avoid this power. And besides that, they're expanding to renewables, right? They have a target of 50-50 renewables by the end of this decade. So, they're prepping for long term and they're well positioned for that one. For AC, for Ayala Corp naman, since we like Ayala Land, we like BPI, so it makes sense to buy Ayala Corp as well. If you're long term for Ayala Corp, you could buy a bit now. Just be careful na lang when it breaks below 700. But definitely, if you have ample amount of cash to buy stocks outside our top picks, you can buy AC to diversify as well. But ano lang, be careful lang. At the end of the day, please have enough cash to buy just in case the market further goes down. Especially right now, there's high probability. Yeah, about the short selling. What are your thoughts on short selling that PSC discussed about recently? Well, for PSC, they're transparent naman on their targets sa short selling. It's just a matter of time. But the purpose of short selling kasi is para mas maging efficient yung market. Kasi for example, if a share price is too high already, you can short the stock for it to go back to its fair value. So technically, short selling enhances market efficiency. So it's good if implemented correctly. Uh, so that's Meralco, right? So for Wilcon will still go up. It's possible. It's possible that Wilcon still go up, but for us kasi our target price for Wilcon is only 18 pesos. So if you have Wilcon, if you've profited heavily on Wilcon, you could probably take profits and buy those stocks that are cheap right now, the reopening winners that are cheap. So probably that's our main recommendation. But Wilcon definitely a good business. It's just that the price is kind of high for us. So there. I would just like to promote our podcast. If you want to listen more to our insights, we have podcasts. So this month we just published the market outlook of Sun Life for the second half of the year. So please listen to the our interview with the Chief Investment Officer Sun Life Asset Management, Mike Enriquez, and their manager of bank and alternative distributions. They're promoting their new fund and actually the feature of their new fund. We have been ranked as a top business podcast last August, and then we have trended several times this year. So we're hoping you guys could listen to our quality podcast. And just to give you a tip for those listening right here, we have a guest that next month. It's a company, right? So something to look forward to, right, in the month of August. So thank you everyone for listening to another monthly wrap up. So I hope you guys stay safe and please take care of yourself. So as always with First Metro Securities, it's hashtag your future first. So thank you everyone.